Hi all, Jeanette here. Well, we went on our little trip to California and got back home safe and sound, even though we did have a humongous traffic jam on our way back to the airport to come home, and we were afraid we might miss our flight, but we did make it, and we didn't even have to wait in the airport very long before we got on our plane. Jeremiah took care of the greenhouse while I was gone, and I think he did a really good job. And so today I'm back out here and I'm ready to start some vining crops like cucumbers, a few watermelons, a few cantaloupes, and some other things. So here you are joining me again. Thanks for coming along. First I'll show you how everything looks. This is the lettuce that I planted. It looks great. We've got broccoli over there, cabbage here, pak choy, a mixture of Swiss chard down the middle, kale, and then I think some more broccoli there. And then this was more pak choy. Look at that. I got 2 trays of pak choy. I actually didn't remember doing that, but that's good. My peppers are still pretty small. These seems like peppers grow so slowly, but I've got these are tomatillos, I think, and then in front here this GC stands for ground cherries. They came up really slow too. The seeds are similar and they're related to each other, but look how much bigger the tomatillo plants are. I planted them on the same day. The habaneros are growing slowly, and maybe they're getting their first true leaves, so I need to probably get them in something else pretty quick. The eggplant has just like nothing is the same. There are all those right there that barely came up. They still have the seeds stuck on them. And over here are ones that have come up pretty good and are ready to get into a different cell. So I don't know if these were a little later coming up and I didn't keep the warmth upright or what. And then there are my shishito peppers, my prized shishito peppers. Those are tomato plants called mountain merit here and here that I had an Amish guy do for me. In there I've got Roma tomatoes, and back there are yellow cherry tomatoes, and then those little pepper plants are some jalapenos. Over here I have 5 50-cell trays of marigolds. I think we're going to be flush with marigolds this year. There's our onions that we planted in the crate. They're looking good. I kind of thought they might grow a little bit faster. The onions like a lot of nitrogen, and that looks a little bit pale, so I'm thinking I'm going to need to feed them some nitrogen. Okay, I wanted to just do real quick, show you what I'm going to do today as far as vining crops are concerned. These things are cantaloupes, and I don't want a lot of cantaloupes, but we want some fresh cantaloupes out of the garden. If we can keep the raccoons and the coyotes away from them, that's a big problem. So I'm going to plant like maybe a dozen cantaloupe plants. I've got zucchini. This is zucchini elite. It's a nice hybrid that we've grown for many years. We don't need a lot of zucchinis at any given time either, so I think that I'll probably do like 10. I'll start 10 and see where I feel like needs to happen whenever it's time to plant them out in the field. I'll do some patty pan squash, some white ones, old-fashioned open pollinated things. We like to do some Thai basil because, you know, we have a strong Asian influence in our family, and I love Thai food, and that Thai basil just adds an extra flavor that is not in any way to be beaten. I've got 2 different kinds of cucumbers. One is a pickling cucumber and the other one is a regular slicing kind of cucumber. And we're going to grow these in our greenhouse number 4. So we can plant those 1 foot apart down there, and this thing is about close to 100 feet long. So I'm going to start 50 of those each, and that's a lot of cucumbers, but I think we probably will plan to sell some, either go to a little market nearby or go to the Amish produce auction. We always have to have some Italian basil, so we'll do that. And then I've got delicata squash. I love delicata squash, and never seems like we have enough of that because it's not highly productive, but it's so good that it's worth it. I grow my okra started in the greenhouse in cells and plant okra plants out into the garden. It's a common way to just direct seed okra, but I can get a jump start on the okra that lasts absolutely all season long with the ability to start the plants in the greenhouse and then set the plants out. Plus, we like to grow it in the black plastic mulch with the drip line underneath. That gives us good weed control and gives us an ability to water just down at the roots where the plant likes it. Okra doesn't really like to get wet on top. It likes hot, dry weather. And so if we can provide that with the black plastic mulch and watering at the ground level, then that works great for okra. Well, I have my potting soil in my container. I use a big black tub, and I'll start by just filling up some trays with some soil. This is a 50 cell tray. The size of the cell is about a 1 ounce shot glass size. Don't press it down, but make sure it's nice and shook down so there aren't any air pockets inside. Somewhere along the way I came up with these trays that are 18 cells and they don't come apart, so they're all one thing, kind of like the 50 cell trays, but they are only 18 and they're really sizable things. And so for things I don't need a lot of, I'm going to plant in these because I have plenty of room out here, but I can leave them in there maybe a little bit longer. Now, vining crops aren't hard to start at all. They don't really like their roots messed with, which is why people often will just direct sow them. And if you have a long growing season and plenty of time, that's fine, but I like to get a head start and I know how. So I'm gonna just take these coated zucchini seeds, and I've got 18 cells in this tray. I'm gonna do 9 of them as the zucchini and 9 of them as a bush squash patty pan. So just make a little hole and poke it down in there and cover it up. That's all you do. It's really easy. I try to get it in the middle. You know, if you need to go fast, which I've had to do before because I had a lot to do, you can poke your holes first and then just drop it down. But since I'm only doing 9, I'll just poke as I go. Now I need to label this, that this is zucchini down here, and then I'll label that it's patty pan squash down there so I don't have too much confusion. Okay, that part's done. Now I need to try to get the soil off of those. I don't really want to put that back in, but there, that's pretty good. Now I'll just put these back into my envelope that they come out in. This tray's ready to water, and I'll just put it in my tray of water that I have down here. For the cucumbers, I'm going to put them in this 50 cell tray, and I will go through and poke holes before I start putting the seeds in, just for speed's sake. I can take my fingers and go through. I'll just do 4 at a time, poke the holes down in there, try to get right in the center. Now these seeds that I grow for the cucumbers are meant to be grown inside a greenhouse. They're quite expensive compared to regular open pollinated seeds, so I don't want to use any more than I don't want to really put 2 in there in each cell. You might do that if you just have really cheap seeds and just to cover yourself, but I'm just going to put 1 seed in each cell. Then I'll just take a container of soil and scatter around over the top. Instead of trying to have enough soil in there to fill up the top, I will just put some more in to cover it. You don't want soil piled up on here because the roots will jump from one cell to another, and then you'll have a mess when you're trying to separate it. But you can leave a little bit of soil on top, because as you water over the time that they grow, that soil is going to actually wash down into the cell, and you won't have a problem as it settles. For the okra, I plan on planting about 50 plants. If I tend it well, that'll give me all the okra I can eat and make pickles out of and everything. And so I'm also going to put that into a 50 cell tray. It's just like the squash crops that I'm going to do. Now it takes a little bit longer for the okra to get big enough. The squash plants, within 4 weeks you should be getting them in the ground, because if they get too big and if they start blooming, they get under stress and they start blooming in the tray, then you might as well throw them away, I think. But you maybe could try to salvage them if you're in that predicament by picking the blossoms off. Don't plant them with the blossoms on. The growth needs to go toward the making of the plant at the beginning, not making fruit. So you'll have a stunted plant if you leave the blossoms on. For the cilantro, I'm going to use this old long pot. It's like maybe it's 24 inches long. It's about 6 inches wide. We've had it around a long time. As you can see, it's pretty ugly. So, but I'll use it for starting the cilantro. Here's the deal with my cilantro. This seed is really old. It's like 6 years old, or it would be 5 years old, because it was packaged in October of 2013, so it was meant to be for the 14 season. But because some of it might not come up, I'm going to go ahead and sow this pretty thick. You can get away with sowing cilantro fairly thick. If you feel like it's too thick and won't grow properly, you can always pull some of it out and use it as little seedlings. It's got a lot of flavor too. So I'll just scatter the seeds out in here and cover it up with some more soil. That'll be my cilantro crop. Here's the deal with cilantro. It's really a short-term crop. It doesn't hold well. It bolts fast, which means it makes flower and wants to go to seed fast. And we used to sell some cilantro plants at the market, and every year, every week, we come through and we have people who want to buy cilantro plants. And after we started seeing the way it did while we were still in the learning stage, we started encouraging people not to buy cilantro plants, because they're just wasting their money. What you need to do is buy seeds for cilantro and have a container, and then maybe 2 containers, and keep seeds planted all the time, because it comes up pretty easy. It's easy to grow, but it won't last long until you have to throw it away or pull it up and use it. So the best way to do is just buy some seeds. For the 2 different kinds of basil that I want to plant, the Thai basil and the Italian basil, I'll use a seeding tray for that, because they are very tiny seeds. This is what it looks like without any soil in it. They're little channels that are, you know, only about an inch deep. The soil that I use is basically the same soil that I grow everything else in, but it is much finer, so it is specifically for seeding. And then I'll just press this down to make little channels inside the channel, a little trough thing. And then I'll open up my package. This one is kind of open funny, but I can make it work. And I'll tap the edge to make the seeds come down and sprinkle them into the little channel. And then I'll take the soil and just barely cover it up. We don't need a lot of Thai basil, you know, because if you would get a Thai basil plant growing, it's going to grow for you for a long time. But I think I'll make a lot of the sweet Italian basil, because, well, we've been thinking we might go to a local market this summer and sell some things that we grow. It's kind of hard to give it up, and see if we can make a little extra money. I have my seeds of trays in my germination table. Now, as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and put the plastic covers on them, because mice especially like these kind of seeds. They like the squash seeds and the cucumber seeds. I haven't had any mice show up yet, but if there's anything that's going to make them show up, it's planting squash seeds. And so I'm covering them up just to be careful. I have to make sure I pay attention so they don't come, the seed doesn't sprout with the cover on there. That would kind of mess them up, but I have to protect them at least at night. During the day is not so much of a problem.